guess so. All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the Mill. Welcome to Whitefield School District 3. My name is Kevin Duran. I am proud to be the superintendent of Whitefield School District 3. I just want to say thank you all for being here. I want to say thank you to our board members from Whitefield that are here. I want to say thank you to our city officials. We have city officials from, I think, Colorado Springs and Fountain, and also industry partners. And all of you who are here in attendance, either in person, online, or if you're going to watch later, thank you for watching later. Your involvement, your commitment to what we do here in Whitefield and in this program is greatly appreciated and is needed for us to see ourselves through the future. The reason I'm standing here today and tonight with the machines and tools of industry in the backdrop is to highlight the relationships and partnerships that have been forged with industry partners. The marriage of industry and their needs and their vision is uniquely connected to the needs and the vision of education. Tonight we are here to recognize that vision, the partnerships, and the future that establishes the opportunities for students to have greater success in school and in the workforce. The Mill represents literally hundreds of industry partners that have come together to invest in the future workforce in the areas of cabinetry, home building, and welding. Within those three domains, students can attain literally dozens of industry-level certifications that equate to real-world jobs in the workforce right now. Our jobs as educators, and I always say this, our jobs as educators is to prepare students for their future and not our past. And so as we move through the needs of our students, it's important for us to know the history of our local economy and our national economy and to understand the present workforce and use data to guide our future. As a district, we are pleased to have the opportunity to work with a local economist, and her name is Dr. Tatiana Bailey, and she's here tonight. When making data-driven decisions, it is important to have someone who understands the current economic climate and future economic trends that impact industry. And in order to do that, it takes a connection to those in industry and those who can help us as educators determine how to be responsive and not reactive. Here's a little something about Dr. Bailey before she comes up and speaks. Dr. Bailey has her master's in applied economics and her doctorate in public health, both from the University of Michigan. In the economic development field, Dr. Bailey presents nationwide year-round on current, national, state, and local economies. She also participates in various economic development initiatives and has particularly focused on closing the skills gap. Recently, Dr. Bailey founded and is the director of a new nonprofit, Data-Driven Economic Strategies, which focuses on monthly economic reports and workforce development initiatives. I am pleased to have Dr. Tatiana Bailey as our guest this evening, that she's going to lay out and what drives the decisions to have partnerships and the opportunities like this for our students here in Whitefield and across Colorado Springs. I present to you Dr. Tatiana Bailey.
Well, with that introduction, thank you so much, and I bet you guys thought I was taller, right? See, that's why I don't use podiums, because nobody can see me past the podium. Sir, I do rely heavily on slides. I promise you they're not too many. But if you can't see them, I think it really helps to be able to see them, so feel free to move around. There are a bunch of seats up here as well. So thank you, Superintendent Duran, and also Scott Campbell. I was telling my daughter on the way here that when we first started talking more about workforce development and developed a custom platform called WAM, the Workforce Asset Map, I did a presentation in front of the superintendents, and Scott Campbell was one of the first people to come up to me and say, hey, I really like the message and the focus of what you're looking at as an economist. You know, you should come out to the Mill. And so I did, and I was incredibly impressed. And it seems like that's the mindset that you all have, because now Whitefield, besides this incredible initiative here, they're looking also at all right, well, what are some of the other things that we can train kids? Maybe STEM related, maybe some of the coding, languages that are out there that kids can learn while they're still in school. And they can have a career trajectory, because even if they get a basic certification while they're in school or any type of training, that makes it that much easier for them to go into directly a job, often a livable wage job, and also have a career pathway, because then maybe they can get the next certification or a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree, but we've given them a springboard. So with that in mind, I am going to talk a little bit about the economy as soon as I get this going here. And I'm going to use that information to kind of justify what we're doing here. Okay, so data-driven economic strategies, 2 things. We do a lot of economic reporting for the Colorado Springs area, for Pueblo, and we just started doing one for a large association in Washington, D.C. For our community here, we make it free. And we publish it every month. It has the top job openings, what's the unemployment rate, and about a 1.5-page narrative of what I think is important. Because I live and breathe this data. Pueblo is also making it free. The county commissioners and the city council there basically took on the initiative themselves and pay for that to make it free for the community. And then the other arm is workforce development, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And this is just what those economic reports look like. You don't need to, and there's the Pueblo one, but you get an idea of what these reports are, and they're about 6 or 7 pages long. So what are we covering today? I'm going to talk about the labor shortages. Despite the fact that a lot of people are talking about recessions and slowdowns and so forth, there's still a lot of labor shortages, and there's a huge message in that. So we're still currently in a tight labor market. We have too few workers. There's a lot of interesting information about why. How many people are just choosing not to work? Why are they not working? How does this compare to other nations? So I'm going to go through that, and I'm going to show you that it is largely demographics. These demographic transitions are mostly due to aging, lower birth rates from 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, right? I have 5 kids, but not too many people do these days anymore, and then lower immigration. And then the skills gap is a big one, and that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. And then wide field, some of the things that they're already doing and some of the opportunities. So the unemployment rate, just so you know, economists usually say the natural rate of unemployment, just people moving sort of naturally from one job to another, is about 4 or 4.5%. Look at what it is in the U.S., 3.3%. Incredibly low, and that's a lot of the reason that we haven't seen a hard recession, if you will. Look at El Paso County, even lower at 3%. The state averaged 2.8%. That is pretty unprecedented. And then the forecasts are for it to maybe go up a little bit in 2023, but not a huge amount, despite some of the headlines that you're seeing. That 3.3% unemployment rate is the lowest since 1969. And then the December jobs report was still really strong, 223,000 new jobs. Now again, as we go further into 2023, there are some signs of a slowing in the economy. But with an unemployment rate this low, a lot of unemployed people, or a lot of people have to become unemployed in order for it to go up to even 5%, right? And it's low partially because that red line, the blue line's the unemployment rate, that red line is the civilian participation rate. How many people are participating in the labor force, choosing to be active workers or actively looking for work? Look at how it's been coming down since 2004. Went down even further during the pandemic, where that spike is, and it still hasn't fully recovered. So what's going on with that? So between the number of unemployed, 5.7 million, 5.2 million not actively in the labor force, the total is 10.9 million people who are not participating in the labor force or are basically, in this U6 unemployment rate. That's a lot of under or unutilized labor. Most of the unemployed are young people. But you think, oh, well, what's going on there? But they're also the ones who are more actively looking for work. So a lot of people see this and they say, oh, it's just young people who are choosing not to work. They are counted in the unemployment rate if they're actively looking. So, a recent graduate, an 18-year-old, whatever the case may be. The other thing I got curious about several years ago is how is this labor participation rate in comparison to other countries? The black line up there is the United States, labor participation rate for what we call prime working ages, 25 to 54. Look at how it's higher. More people participating in the labor force in Germany, Canada, the UK, and Australia. That's kind of a structural thing. It's kind of makes you go, well, what's going on there? And then even before the pandemic, if you look over here, it's not projected to increase. The gray bar all the way on the right are the projections from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, a good source, for 2031. So something else is going on here. And then for El Paso County, how many of you knew that we are younger here than the US on average, the median age? We are, actually by quite a lot. 34.9 is the median age in El Paso County. In the US, it's 38.8. So wouldn't you think there would be more people participating in the labor force? But no. The other thing to really keep in mind is Colorado, just like the rest of the US, is becoming more and more and more diverse. In fact, by 2050, the red bars, you're going to have almost 50% of 18 to 64-year-olds who are going to be of some racial, ethnic, diverse group, okay? Hispanic, Black, Asian, or American Indian. Even 65 plus, and then look at kids. 0 to 17, we're going to have more than 50% of the Colorado population belonging to one of these groups. Now, why do we have a shortage of bodies? What's going on here with 10.5 million job openings, but only 5.7 million unemployed? It is mostly demographics, okay? Not all, but mostly demographics. So 1 in 7 people right now in the US are ages 65 plus, and by 2030, it's going to be 1 in 5. So we have a lot of people who are aging out of the workforce. So it's not just young people who are pulling down the labor participation rate, because actually if you look at working age people, that 25 to 54, the labor participation rate now at 76.3% is about the same as it was pre-pandemic. Okay, so it's not just that the young people are choosing to come out of the labor force. Also, how many of you deal with childcare issues? We lost a tremendous number, 160,000 childcare workers in 2019, almost 20%. Some of those workers have come back, but we're still down 72,000 childcare workers, and kind of like teachers, there was a chronic shortage even before the pandemic, and the pandemic just made it a little bit worse. So that's another reason that a lot of people are not participating in the labor force. You know, my husband and I made a pretty good living. We had a bunch of kids. I worked part-time from home because it didn't make sense, even with a doctorate, for me to pay for childcare. Now, another major thing, and this is something I look at closely, look at the labor participation rate of men in the U.S. 2008, fast forward to 2022. It was about 75%, and it's now down to about 68%. If you're curious about this, I wrote an article. It was in the Gazette a few months ago. Some of that is due to fewer manufacturing jobs, okay, the living wage jobs, and that decline started in the 1960s. A lot of the men who are 35 to 44 right now, and that includes a lot of millennials, they entered the workforce during the Great Recession, and they never found a job or they lost their jobs. So that exacerbated things. So they kind of marginally have come in and out of the labor force. Shifting norms on child rearing, who stays home, I mentioned childcare as well. The war on crime and incarceration in the 1990s, a lot of the men who were in that position, when they got out, it was a lot harder for them to find a job. I think there's a lot about how expensive it is to go to school. That's another reason that it's difficult for men to enter the labor force, to get the skills training that they need. And I think that all of this data kind of tells you that don't we need to make more investment in the training of the jobs of today and tomorrow? And then one other thing to think about in terms of demographics, we literally have fewer children now in the U.S. than we did 10 years ago, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. So that pipeline, and administrators in particular are very much aware of the fact that high school enrollments are actually declining now because of those demographics where people just don't have as many children as they used to. Now, what about the skills gap? That's another reason that I believe that labor participation is low. We need every worker we can get. If there's one thing I've shown you, let's train them with the relevant skills. So clearly the problem is not the number of job openings. Yes, the pandemic, the red line, made them go through the roof, and they are moderating now, but still look at how high they are by historic standards with that trend line. 10.5 million job openings in November, even with some of this talk about an impending recession. So again, we need to make sure that we're paying attention to these job openings. What are they in? What are these job openings, and are we training people in community colleges, within high schools and so forth, and four-year degrees for these openings? The one other thing I want to show you is these numbers, when you juxtapose the number of openings to the unemployed, the U.S. has roughly 0.6 of a worker for each open position. A little more than half. The other thing that's interesting is that the job openings, the Bureau of Labor Statistics tells you by what category, what industry. A lot of people think, oh, we're just undertraining in one or two industries. Look at how diverse these different openings are in terms of the sectors. Leisure and hospitality, education and health, professional and technical, and so forth. And then look at the change in the number of job openings from April of 2019, not that long ago, until October of 2022, job openings are up 45%. And then just so you have an idea of our region, this is the employment by sector in El Paso County. So we already have a lot of people in healthcare, retail, trade, accommodation, and food, but also professional and technical, construction, and so forth. So we have all of these industries very well represented in this community. Now, remember I just said to you that the number of job openings, 0.6 in the U.S., workers for each job opening. Look at how tight it is for us, just the same, 0.6, and 0.51 in Colorado Springs. And I pulled back to October data, so it would be before the holidays, and you can look at the data that way. And then these are the top 10 job openings in Colorado Springs MSA. I'm amazed at how many communities don't even know this. How do we not really pay close attention to this in terms of what we're training kids for, right? So we all know about the nursing shortage. We know about the teacher shortage, but a lot of software developers, retail salespeople, managers, computer systems, and so forth. And I look at this as a much bigger and longer list, and I can tell you that there are hundreds of job openings in a lot of different categories. In October, we had almost 24,000. And then here, this just shows you, for these top 10 job openings, how many years of training do you need? And what are the median salaries, the red dots? I think kids should be seeing this, and parents should be seeing this too, to be well informed. And then if I look at the projections given to us by the state of Colorado, Department of Labor and Employment, a lot of those categories that we're talking about, they're projected to grow. So if we follow the pathways that we're seeing for now, most of them, like construction, here we are at the mill, look at how many job openings between now and 2031, 4,200, okay? And professional and technical and healthcare and so forth. Now, the other thing, I love data, but let's dig a little bit deeper. So in these job platforms that I look at, you can also say, what are the top certifications? Okay, and it doesn't always have to be degrees. Okay, things like a driver's license a lot of times are requirements, but look at also, we have a ton of IT positions, CompTIA, security, we have certified information systems. There's a plethora of things here, some of which need a 4-year degree and some which don't. We also have truck drivers, network administrators, a lot of healthcare positions, and so forth. Here, software and programming. This was another one that I looked at even more closely during the pandemic. So look at some of the simpler skills like knowing the Microsoft suite, but also Linux, Python, Java, SQL, C++. How many of us have kids that are much better at computers than we are as parents, right? Kids have proficiency and interest in this, and there's incredibly high demand for it. And then I also can look at, well, what are the education requirements of these job postings in these in the software that I look at, every month. High school, bachelor's degree. It's what economists call a barbell economy. You have, yes, we'll always have need for those 4-year degrees and plus, but we also have a lot of vocational training that's out there that, 6,000 job openings in the month of October. And then I call this common sense solutions. So what if, for instance, in 2017, I said, let me look at the top job openings for healthcare. Okay, it's nurses, but it's also medical assistants, phlebotomists, 2-year nursing degrees. These are the number of job postings. So for instance, for nursing assistants, there were 1,500 job openings in 2017. We trained 95 in Colorado Springs. We don't have enough programs. That's what we should be paying attention to in our schools and in our communities. And then I briefly just want to go over another barrier I mentioned is the cost of higher education. Average student debt now is about $37,000. It's even higher for Black borrowers for $55,000. And remember how diverse our community is becoming in our nation. 20 years after entering schools, half of the borrowers still owe $20,000. And about 70% of college grads today have student loans. So that's a barrier for a lot of families looking at the opportunity cost of how do I pay for this and is it worthwhile? Completion is a problem. About 50% of university level students do not graduate by the end of their 6th year. So there's something else going on there in terms of, can they just not afford to finish paying for it? Are they fully prepared for it? I've actually talked to students who also say, yeah, I decided to drop out because I don't know if a communications degree is necessarily going to get me the job that I need. And then lastly, I just want to show back to the male participation that I talked about. I think probably most of you can guess or already know that boys have a lower high school graduation rate and post-secondary enrollment rate than girls. Look at the Widefield School District, and this is characteristic around the nation, the male completion rates and the female completion rates. In 2021, it got worse because of the pandemic, but about 68% of males completed and almost 80% of females. So, that's another thing that is feeding some of those discrepancies that I was talking about in terms of the male labor participation rate. I think career and technical education, what's my takeaway from all this data as an economist? First of all economists are going to say jobs are at the center of everything, right? That's how businesses get the talent they need, and that's how people can afford to live and thrive for themselves and for their families. So why not use career and technical education within the schools even more actively? And I give accolades to school districts like Widefield that are thinking about this and trying to implement programs. I am trying with my new nonprofit to get them to the next level in terms of maybe some of these IT-related positions and trainings that we can do for our kids. So I really do think the more credentials and relevant training that we have while kids are in school, the better. So, as I mentioned, Widefield has this already as a platform. I think the Mill is a great example of that. Interestingly, in 2021-22, Widefield passed 161 students in pre-apprenticeship certificate training, 63 in woodworking, which is pretty impressive when you think about it. And many of these careers have high projected growth, like I showed you, right? For instance, for the construction trades, 25 plus. I love that Nikki Carter did this. She has this for the different certification programs for construction. You can see here the different courses she has how she has it laid out. And we just recently started adding some of the information, like, all right, for electricians as an example, what's the median salary? Shouldn't we know this? It's about $60,000 in the US. How many job openings in the US for electricians? 80,000. 7% yearly growth between now and 2031. Colorado Springs had 733 openings for electricians in 2022, and Widefield graduated 41 students with this credential for electricians. So let's study these job openings and let's implement into the schools whatever we can to prepare our kids as much as possible. And I do believe that we have within localities, within cities, within school districts, that's where you have a lot more control over this. And then I would also just say, keep an eye on this moving forward. Ensure that these programs, the data, stay on top of it so that as the needs change of employers, we're also paying attention to this for the programs that are being offered. And that's it.
Probably not. Thank you, Dr. Bailey. Now you see why we need to have somebody that keeps their eyes on all of this information and is able to give us good data so that we can make good decisions. As educators, we can't possibly keep up with everything that is happening at the time that it's happening, but having partnerships is the thing that we really are leaning in on to make sure that we have the right information for our students. And that's what it's really about. It's about our students. I mean, we are focused on making sure that as we hand off students to the next phase, that they have real opportunities and we have data that shows that we are teaching the right things at the right time in the right place. We have this moniker that we say at Widefield: we are preparing every student for their future in every classroom every day. And that goes for the mill, but it also goes for all of our projects and programs that we have across the district. But it's really, for the mill, is about our partnerships. And I can't express this enough. What you see here in the mill would not happen without the partnerships that we have with local industry, with those who are interested, those who want to be a part of what we are doing. And it's not that we are looking for money or handouts. We're looking for opportunity to connect with the people that are eventually going to take our students from us and say we need those skill sets then to create the job force that we need. In our moniker, we talk about pride, we talk about tradition, and we talk about innovation. And innovation is one of those tricky words that sometimes becomes a catchphrase. But in Widefield, we really think about innovation, not about technology, but about what's next. What can we do next that's going to be the next best thing for our students and for the population that we serve? And so there are some words that I like to kind of post around innovation. That is creativity. And Dr. Bailey talked about STEM. And again, thank you, Dr. Bailey, for your insight. I really look forward to the continuous partnership and the relationship, because this is how we are going to get better as a group. Creativity, STEM is kind of one of those words that you hear a lot about, but we're putting real action into all of these words. Vocational careers, obviously, is what the mill is all about, but we're really trying to encourage innovation by fostering creativity, preparing students for STEM and vocational careers, while developing learners into thinkers, authors, entrepreneurs, developers, and creators. When we think about students, a lot of times we think about, well, you need to be compliant. You need to sit in your chair. You need to be quiet. You need to finish your homework. All of those things, yes, are important. But if we don't create thinkers and problem solvers, all we produce are just people that understand how to either take orders or follow a script. We want our students to be the leaders of those who create the scripts. And so that's our vision for innovation. We want to continue to challenge ourselves, challenge the things that we currently do to really post into a new era for our students. We're very vocational minded. The mill is all about vocational opportunities, and it should be. I cannot touch the economic information that Dr. Bailey went through, and she does a fabulous job of really explaining all of that in great detail. I am a subscriber to one of her newsletters, and it is really important for us to continue to track through that. But it is the economic factors that we really want to help lead us into what those vocational jobs and careers are. And these are all the things that I'm just not going to repeat because Dr. Bailey did that much greater of a job. But what I really want to focus on is, why do we focus on vocational training and industry level certifications? And I think industry level certifications through this is the game changer in education. When we graduated, and everybody, I'm assuming except for those students who are in the back there, most of us graduated from high school and we got a diploma. And that diploma told us that we fulfilled the requirements that the school asked us to fulfill, but did it tell any employers that we had a skill set that was worth taking on to that next level? a certification, an industry level certification, if we can get that during the time that we are training students to get their diploma, we have given them twice the power to earn what they need to earn as they move into their future. Those industry level certifications are not always something that you have to wait until you graduate from high school. It is something that you can do right now. We've done a really good job of preparing our students for their diploma, but also giving them a leg up and one extra element of skill sets that can be shown physically to say, yes, I graduated, but yes, I have a skill set that is applicable right now for the job in the workforce. So that creates not just a graduate, but it creates somebody that has career readiness, that they can actually participate in the economic development of our community. If we focus on the local job force, we're really putting into place students right now that can build the economy in Colorado Springs right now. It gives them an alternative path. Yes, we want students to go to college. We are never going to detract from that, and we always push that as a readiness skill set. But we also realize that not all students can afford or want to or really need to for their goals. And so those alternative paths are very important. Dr. Bailey talked about closing the skills gap, and that skills gap is something that we want to be a part of today and right now, and we can. And that gives us the opportunity with our with our partnerships. For teaching, you know, I don't know how many of you have ever taught or been around lots of high school students or students in general, but you got to keep them busy. Mentally, physically, their hands have to be busy. If you don't keep them busy, they will keep you busy as an instructor. So hands-on activities all across the board, regardless if it's here or if it's in one of our classrooms. We want to make sure that our students are learning and it's physical and it's visceral, and they are looking at how to use their hands and have that part connected to their brains as well. It's cost effective for students. Those who cannot afford to spend money on college or need to have money now, they don't have to use the college mechanism to be successful. They could actually find a job with that industry level certification and be able to maybe go to college later as their employer sends them to college. And some of these jobs, and a lot of these jobs, are higher paying. No longer are we saying that to get a good job, you have to go to college. To get a good job, you have to have a skill set that's relevant and that's ready to go now. And if you can continue on that work path, you can get as good of a job as anyone else without any debt. So those are really important things that we want to emphasize. And the industry level certifications just don't lie within the vocational training that we have. We love our vocational side, but we're looking towards the future. What's next? I said that innovation is not about what's new, but it's about what's next. So what is next? We have computer science, we have engineering, biomedical, we have all kinds of really cool and great opportunities for students to get their feet wet within. And these are opportunities that are starting to have and emerge with their own industry level certifications. So the model of the mill has shown us something, that with partnerships, with a design and a development of where that data and those trends are going, and with trying to marriage all those things together, we can create pathways for students to be successful in many different ways. Personally, I really believe that if a student is in a vocational field, it's good for them to know coding. And I really believe if a student is really wanting to go to college for coding, they really should learn a vocational skill, because it's all connected. The rural world, the technology world, robotics, engineering, all of those things are connected. When you walk the floor later on today, you're going to see high-tech industry-level machinery. That needs to be serviced, that needs to be coded, that needs to be maintained. All of those are part of the world that we live in that we need more of our students to be a part of. And so I like to see this marriage between STEM education and vocational education. We have a strong system here, and we will always continue to run our programs with welding, with home building, with cabinetry. All of those have great, solid foundational skills that we want to continue to emphasize and enhance, and we're going to build those out, and we're going to find new ways of finding how we can connect our students to the workforce through those three domains: But we also, in our schools, we teach robotics. We teach STEM, Project Lead the Way, that has biomedical engineering and computer science. We have a lot of students that like music, and we're trying to find out, if you really like music, how can we connect you to the workforce? Well, there's acoustical engineering. There's production studios. We actually have students that are hired at different halls around Colorado Springs that are helping with the sound production for large musicals and plays and concerts. If they're interested in something, there's ways for us to connect those students to that thing. And a lot of those have industry-level certifications that we can get them certified now. Cybersecurity is one that is very a hot topic, and we are training students in those areas as well, and that continues to be something that we want to drive within all of our schools. But we don't start at the high school, we start at elementary. All of our elementary schools right now have robotics clubs. Every one of our elementaries participates in competitions for robotics. Every one of our elementaries compete in coding competitions, every one of them. We have an elementary that we just built in Lorson Ranch that is a computer science integrated curriculum that kindergarten through 8th grade is where they learn how to start the elements of coding. And it's a really cool thing to watch how students are evolving with that. It's not that the vocation is not a part of that they are learning skill sets that they can marry with that vocation if they so choose. Our junior highs have classes in biomedical, engineering, computer science, cybersecurity, acoustic engineering. Our high schools then becomes the place where we start to integrate the industry level certifications. High school, as they start to learn start to go through some of their coursework, we start looking at what are those careers and industry certifications. And we've mapped certifications to each one of those classes so that there is an opportunity, if we have a student that is good in engineering, they can get their CAD certification before they graduate. Well, if you look behind the screen, there is a huge CNC machine and a computer lab that is all about teaching students CAD, because that machine works off of CAD. That marriage is already there. You get your certification, you can come here and really have a leg up on how to use these high-tech machines to even go that much further. And so regardless if you're on a vocational pathway or a college pathway, we really want to build those integration points all throughout for our students. I really see the mill in the future having this full integration between vocational and the engineering fields and some of these other areas that we haven't mapped yet. Why? Because there's a student graduation pathway for all of our students there. We have senior internships, comprehensive vocational programs, STEM pathway integration, like I said, with CAD, engineering, robotics. I would like to see at some point on this floor robotic arms, where students can demonstrate and model the robotic arm movement that's in lots of different manufacturing areas. And we don't want this place just to be for high schoolers. We need to integrate our kindergartners through 5th grade, seeing how they can get excited about what is happening here, having our students go to the elementaries and get them excited about what is ahead of them, and make sure that they see those connections. We have a group of special needs students. We are looking for inroads to make sure that our special needs students have opportunities to come through and be successful as well. And then you'll see in this video that people always kind of typecast the type of student that comes to a vocational school, that it's the boys, it's 90% all guys who are just a part of these fields. I'll tell you that over the last few years, I've seen one of the highest performing plumbers and electrician competitors come from our female group of students that come out of the mill. It's really exciting to see. The earlier you start students engaging in all of these activities, the less it becomes about what gender you are. It becomes about what you're interested in and what's cool and what you have the aptitude for and what you get excited about. The really good thing about the mill And the bad thing about tonight is that you don't get to see tonight's mill in action. The action part of the mill is when you have kids on the floor. When it's loud, you have the compressors going, you have the air handlers handling, and you get all of those things with your professors that are going through and instructing, and it's a really cool opportunity to see how it all comes together. And you see the interests in where kids are now thinking about, it's not about a class that I have to check a box. It's about, I'm really interested, I'm really leaning in, I'm learning, I'm listening, I'm trying to figure out how it is that I can have that same skill set and how I can see myself grow from being a novice to being comfortable and competent and confident in those skills that I'm driving. So instead of asking our students, which I know would be pretty intimidating to have them come up and speak to you, and there's a lot of you out there today, and thank you, students. All the students that are out here, please raise your hand and just be recognized. I want to say thank you guys for being here. I'm not going to put any of you on the spot. I have a video from a few years back as we first got the mill off the ground that I'm going to show to showcase what this means for students as they've gone through this program.
This program is based off of industry. You're coming into not just another classroom, you're coming into a family setting. You're coming into a full-fledged manufacturing facility.
This is definitely a lot more hands-on than what you would do in school because it's a bigger building and you have more equipment available for you.
We learned a lot about tools, how to use them safely and properly.
We got 3-way axis routers. We have table saws that we can use.
The machines are very high-tech.
This completely changes the definition of a wood shop.
In this program, you really learn independence and leadership.
Definitely teamwork. You have to be verbal about what you need.
There's a lot of jobs that revolve around this type of work.
Everyone pretty much gets drilled into their head from kindergarten on that college is pretty much the only way to go after high school, and it's really not. So this kind of helps broaden that path. You learn a lot more than just woodworking. You learn how to live.
So from the voice of students, you can see how important it is for them to have discovered a program like this. I want to take a couple seconds just to say, the manufacturing lab, the mill, was founded by 3 key people: a former cabinet maker, Mr. Dean Matson, a former superintendent from Peyton, Mr. Tim Kistler, and a former superintendent from Whitefield School District 3, Mr. Scott Campbell. Together, they recognized the power and the model that they began to work to create the mill as a national training center. They have seen the initial steps, and they went through the pain of the initial steps to get this off the ground. And so I just want to say thank you and give them a round of applause for getting us to the point where we are now. They didn't want to raise their hands when I called them, but it's that guy there in the white jacket and that gentleman back there in the white hair with the glasses. All right, good. The mill today serves over 422 high school students across those 3 programs that we spoke of, the cabinetry, home building, and welding. Many of these students have received industry certifications, apprenticeships, internships, and already received employment from local companies. The future of the mill is what I want to talk about here in a second. The future of the mill is just a vision, an idea of how we can encapsulate what we've already started into what we can do further. Whitefield School District is very unique. We are in Colorado Springs. We are surrounded by a growing community between the military, white collar, blue collar. We're the only school district in Colorado Springs that has an airport in its boundaries. 95% of the runway is in Whitefield School District 3's boundaries. And so how do we leverage that? How do we take advantage of that? I really see a future of the mill having an expansion. Now, if you looked outside the mill now, you just see the plains and the open fields. But the land that this encapsulates is land that Whitefield School District 3 owns. And as we build this forward, we have some opportunity to connect other industry partners and other industry areas to that same mill model that has expanded our partnerships and given students more of an opportunity. Now, this is my rendition of what I would like to see. I've kind of used the octagon as part of the design, but each one of these wings would represent another element of a connection that is already connected to industry here in Colorado Springs that we could continue to serve our students and find industry level certifications and industry partners to help with. So whether it's robotics, engineering, biomedical, cyber center, we have a UAV aeronautics, and that comes from the military and their promotion of unmanned aircraft, media production, and also computer integrated manufacturing. I see the connection between what we learn here and the lessons we've learned of how to create partnerships with how to expand and even have a better opportunity for more students to be involved in industry level certifications, high school training and certifications and skill sets that are going to give them the jobs in the future. This could be something that really takes advantage and leverages our location, whether it is robotics and robotic arm designs, computer integrated manufacturing, cybersecurity, aeronautical engineering, aviation and avionics, satellite and space science, broadcast and social media, biomedical science, even vet tech, and diesel engine care. Just across the parking lot, we have our transportation unit. I would love to see our students understand and learn how to have diesel mechanic opportunities, because we have students and we have drivers and mechanics that work in close proximity. This location right outside could be an area where we have our virtual learning school, which is now going to be called The Haven. And as we expand, I could see The Haven along with other opportunities for kids who may not want to go to the traditional building but want to come here. I can really see this becoming a vocational school in the future. It's really good to cast a vision and try to determine who is going to be part of that vision as we move forward. And even if we don't get to this part of it, as we move to expand, we are always connecting to what is relevant within our community, what are those jobs and those opportunities that give our students the leg up, and for us to make sure that we are preparing our students for their future and not our past. So as I close, I just want to say again, our partners are the fuel that keeps us going. The mill is the model for K-12 education and how to train skilled workers for the labor force. Whitefield is committed to expanding the mill and using this model to support all different industries. But we are really proud of what we've accomplished in such a short period of time. We are proud of our students who have done the best that they have to make this an opportunity for them to leverage into their future, and for our instructors who have committed their time and their resources to make sure that they're giving their very best to students as we go through the handshake between high school and the workforce. Again, I want to thank our industry partners. I want to thank all of you for coming out, and I will turn this over to Mr. Scala as he gives us instructions about a possible tour. All right. Thank you, Mr. Scala.
Thank you, Mr. Dern. Once again, thanks for coming out. The mill is definitely a special place, so we want to give you the opportunity to tour and showcase some of our different areas for you. The way we're going to structure it tonight is we're actually going to have designated people for each area. So we're going to start out. If you are interested in a particular area, then all you'll need to do is go over directly to that person. I'll kind of let you know who that is going to be. So over here, if you're interested in seeing our amazing welding area, we have Mr. Prasad and Mr. Campbell. So just kind of go over to that area and they can take you back to the welding section. As far as our construction, so for our cab 1 and cab 2, we would like you to go over to Mr. Hollingsworth. You can raise your hand over there. He can kind of show you what the kids do during year 1 and year 2. if you would like to, you can actually go out and see the house build where we're at, and that's going to be Mr. Landis back there with a couple of the students that are working hard on that house as we speak. And so Mr. Landis raised his hand. If you want to go out, he can light that up and give you a chance to see what our students are doing out there. And then we also have Mr. Kistler, come on up. Mr. Swarsky and Mr. Kistler, they are going to be guiding tours on the cab side and really can take some time to explain to you what the equipment does and how things operate. So if you are interested in those tours, we'd love to show you around. Again, we're very proud of the mill and what we're doing for students in Whitefield School District 3. Thanks again for taking the time to come out tonight. It means a lot. I know to our instructors who put their heart and soul into this place, and all the other administration and support staff across our district that are supportive, and I couldn't thank our Board of Education enough because they've been along with us the entire ride as we put this thing together. So go ahead and head in the direction you want to go. There are still refreshments too on your way out. Make sure you grab some cookies or some snacks on the way out. Thanks again. Round of applause for Dr. Bailey, Mr. Dern.